Hi, welcome back to Wild Speculations. I'm Daniel.
I'm Scott.
This week we talk about Critical Role Campaign 3, Episode 1, The Dawn of Destiny.
Yes. Draw.
Yes.
Very good episode. I loved it. I don't know if it's the withdrawals from not having Critical Role, but I was very excited about a lot of things that happened.
It was peaks and valleys for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can see that, but for me, like, the valleys just weren't deep enough to be, like, big. You know what I mean? It's more like neutral state to excitement to neutral state to excitement than peaks per se.
Right.
Yes.
I think I'm becoming too cynical.
Okay, before we get too into this, can we just start off with saying that I almost exactly nailed the seating chart?
Oh, yeah.
Travis was closest to Matt on his head of the table, and without the inclusion we'll get to later, he was on the side with 3, with Marisha and Sam. I had them flipped.
Yeah.
And then I said Liam and Taliesin were going to sit together, and Laura and Ashley, and that the girls would be closer to Matt. And all of that happened.
Yeah.
I really screwed up on the character choices, so I'm calling the win when I've got one. Because the closest I got was that Laura played someone charisma-based, which a third of the classes are charisma-based, so that wasn't a huge stretch.
Yeah. Well, no, we both said that Taliesin would play a Matt-designed class.
True.
And that one of them was going to play an Automaton.
Yeah.
So we weren't.
And I did say that Ashley wasn't done with the Feywild background stuff.
Yeah. And
I didn't expect Fern, but I knew she wasn't done with the...
Yeah, and like I think I'm pretty sure I mentioned it, that I didn't feel that he was done with the halfling.
You said the fighter, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I was saying he was going to be a cleric. And so I'm going to call half on that, because he's technically still the same character. His next character is still going to be a cleric. Because in Matt's tweets clarifying EXU was that both Ashley and Liam, that Orm and Fern were their pitches for Campaign 3, and they asked if it was okay if they took them into EXU as a session 0 for their characters to get a feel for them. And Matt said that was fine. And then he offered them all the chance to re-roll the stats, because I guess the rolling of the stats for EXU was different than what
Matt does.
Matt does. And he offered them all the chance to re-roll stats, and 2 of them did.
Okay.
Because both Fern and Robbie's stats are very different from what they were in EXU.
Okay.
Which I noticed right off the bat when I saw Robbie's character card. Because he goes from... So in EXU he had a 14 strength, 14 dex, 10 con, 12 intelligence, 10 wisdom, 15 charisma. He now has a 17 strength, 16 dex, 17 con, 12 intelligence, 9 wisdom, and 16 charisma. So he went up in every stat except for wisdom, which went down 1.
Wow.
So, which is the opposite of Travis, but we'll get to that later.
Well, Dorian probably also lost his extra sight ability that he got.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is that he needs to recalculate his hit points. Because with a +3 con modifier and max diet level 1, that's 17 for 3rd level without rolling the 2 dice. And they listed him as having only 17 hit points, which was his hit point total from EXU. They didn't recalculate his hit points. So they've got his hit points too low.
Yeah. Yeah, Rose. I think that was when I was most elated in the episode when he called on EXU. For one, because I was right that we're having an 8th player.
Yep.
But also to get so Liam has his chance to play his halfling.
A proper fighter, yeah.
So yeah,
but again, I still say my theory that he's going through the 4 classes because he stated that, and his next character will be a cleric. I'm still holding to that. I just didn't realize he was still playing the fighter.
Also explains why in EXU they didn't go beyond 3rd level.
That's true. Yeah, I think that might have been. Bray, you've got a cap. They can't get past 3rd level because these 2 are coming in at least.
Yeah. So, Rose, yeah, some interesting choices have been made vis-a-vis the characters and their starting stuff. I have a feeling he still has the shield.
I do too, and I think there's evidence that other people have magical items as well already.
Yes, the Talison's hammer has to be magical.
Yeah. And we know Travis's rapier is magical.
Yes, but he had that
right
during the search for Grog. So, and that was a nice little tip. And Bertram's going to die.
Yes, flat out. Wasn't sure if we were going to jump ahead to that just yet.
Yes, Rose. He was level 5. Bertram dropped from 15,
from 18th level to 5th level, and his stats changed as well. He went from in the one shot having 19 strength and dex, 14 con, 12 intelligence, 11 wisdom, 13 to charisma, to 16 strength, 15 dex, 11 con. Bump up in intelligence to 15. Wisdom went down to 10, and charisma stayed the same at 13.
Well, some of that is going to be the loss of 4 ASIs.
Yeah.
So, yeah. That's an interesting way to handle aging, is the loss of levels. I don't know how I feel about it, but you also can't have Travis playing an 18th level character when everyone else is 3rd level.
Yeah.
Like, 3rd to 5th is a difference, but it's not insurmountable.
Yeah. Well, we had this discussion with EXU.
Yeah.
Because they were 3rd level with the 5th level companion.
Yeah. But yeah, Sir Bell is going to die.
Yes.
And I think Matt has taken a page out of Matt's book. So Mercer has taken a page out of Colville's book.
Right.
And one of his players is playing a character that it has already been planned and decided that they are going to die. And possibly the manner in which that death is going to occur.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to happen soon, unless the dice decree it, but the planned death, I think, is going to be when they make 4th level.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that. I figured it was going to be however long it takes them to invest in the plot. He's the plot key to set them down this road.
I think Matt has set up a traditional hero's journey story for them, which requires the mentor.
So you think Sir Didymus is playing the part of Obi-Wan? He gives me Sir Didymus vibes from the Labyrinth.
Yeah. Yes, he's definitely the Obi-Wan character. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. See, I think of more Man of La Mancha than Sean Connery in The Highlander.
Although I think he probably, now that you say Sean Connery in Highlander, he definitely has a Ramirez vibe.
His aesthetic is Ramirez. His personality is Sir Didymus, who was also patterned after Ramirez / Man of La Mancha.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to the beginning.
Rewind. Yeah, let's rewind and go through the introductions as they happen.
Yeah. First off, we have Laura and Marisha.
Yep.
Imogen and Laudna.
Yes. Imogen Temmelt. Human sorcerer.
Aberrant Mind.
Yes, I was going to say...
Variant human with a telekinetic feat.
Yes, because she does use it on fresh cut grass later.
Yep.
Had all that. But also she's got the thing with the save where if she doesn't read the person, she has to make a save of 10 plus the number of people in the room. Wisdom save, or she hears everything. Which is a weird twist. It's like, because that's not in any of the class or anything. That's not like in the Imperator or anything. Kind of feels like one of the dark gifts from Ravenloft. So, but I think it might be something more akin to her backstory, like Caleb had to make the save when he killed someone with fire.
Or it's a meta magic that Matt made up for her.
Yeah. So it's one of those two things, because it's not part of the Aberrant Mind feature.
Because it wouldn't be, like, it's not outside of the design process for an ability for the sorcerer to use sorcery points to manifest.
Yeah.
The shadow sorcerer
can
cast darkness with sorcery points, and they can see through it when they do it that way.
Yeah, and they can also summon the hound with sorcery points.
Yeah. So...
yeah, there's definitely precedent for that.
Yeah, him making a meta magic that lets you, for the Aberrant Mind, or tweak the ability, because I think they do have something about telepathy.
Yeah,
but I don't.
Yeah, they do. They can connect to people telepathically. That's a level 1 class feature.
Yeah,
but there's no like drawback. You have to make a save or anything.
Ah, Rose. I was hoping you would ask that. So, I think, much like Campaign 2, Laura took inspiration from extraplanar encounters that they had in Campaign 1. She has used their experience with the Astral Sea and everything for this character.
I'm digging that. That also explains why we open again with the charisma caster wanting to go to school to learn about magic. I was like, wait, this again?
Yeah, I was like, why do they always want to be wizards?
Just be a wizard. But yeah, no, that makes sense, especially if it's something with the fallout from that.
Yes.
Because yeah, she seems to have come about the powers suddenly, as sorcerers do at times. But she definitely gives a very Dorothy or...
Are you saying that just because of the accent?
No. My first thought was more of like Ellie Mae, or, you know, just the innocent, kind of naive, but not quite. The country girl moved to the big city trope, you know. But no, yeah, just Dorothy when she goes to Oz. It's not that she's dumb or unaccustomed to it. It's just this is a whole new thing,
Yeah.
Kind of vibe.
It's fair.
And I think that she and Laudna are probably together through a little bit of manipulation on Laudna's part due to her backstory. I think she probably scared Imogen into but Laudna, so let's just go ahead and jump to her real quick and tie it back. Laudna, unknown race. I have theories.
As do I.
My first thought, based on the aesthetic and everything, was hex blood.
Mine too.
But I think her sorcerer is first level, and I think she's either a Dhampir or a Reborn. I think possibly Dhampir because of the Whitestone connection, and it's a shitty place.
Well,
I think she may be a Dhampir who they were like, oh, you're vampire. We know what those guys are like, and we're gonna witch hunt type. Or if she's Reborn, it was because of her sorceress origin. But I don't really see them doing that because Vox Machina were friends with Tiberius, who was a sorcerer. So I don't think that would be the law of the land there. And then she was burned at the stake and became reborn.
Yeah. I also thought Dhampir for the Whitestone connection.
Yeah.
And that's now 2 of them, if that's true. Well, Laudna definitely has a connection to Vox Machina.
Yes.
Because her origin is tied up in some way with the Briarwoods.
Yep.
And whether she became a Dhampir while they were there, or as an effect afterwards, finding an artifact or coming across whatever.
Or possibly an unmentioned descendant.
Yeah.
Or descendant of a vampire they sired.
Yeah. So, yeah. And I have her pegged as an Undying Warlock.
Undead Warlock. She's the undead from Ben Richten's with the aspect of dread. The Undying is the sword because...
I always get those confused. And I pegged her as a Shadow Sorcerer.
Yes, I did too. I figured she got the Shadow Sorcerer. That way she's still got the spooky undead vibes, but she's not stepping on the Aberrant Mind, which is the other kind of creepy, crawly sorcerer origin. I think she started out there. Story-wise, we've just discussed. Mechanically-wise, it gives her con saves. Charisma and con versus charisma and wisdom.
Yeah.
So, big bonus there for a caster.
Yeah.
Not that she's going to want to get into combat with a 5 strength.
Yeah.
There's a reason why she was staying back and just bane and eldritch blasting. And again, Marisha continues her pattern of disliking children.
And see, and that bit right there was one of the things that made me think Hexblood.
Yes, that
and the way that she described how her
bones cracked and elongated. Yeah, that very much gave Hag vibes, which is the Hexblood.
Yeah,
right there with you. Had the same thought process.
And I don't know if she's doing it as a...
Yes, Rose. Laudna is hands down my favorite right now.
As sort of a love letter to Matt and his depiction of the Hag and or Deshilla. And also a little bit of a rib against Travis. Because now she's just going to spend the whole campaign freaking him the fuck out.
Yeah.
And also a sort of a nod, a love letter homage to Ashley and Yasha.
Okay.
Because the art is...
Yeah, I could see it very much being a Bo Yasha child. Yeah, no, I can see that. She gives off very much, what was it I said to Tim? Helena Bonham Carter vibes. Or Ida from the Owl House, if you've seen that.
Yeah. The spike in her hair.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to decide if that means she's proficient with Mason's tools or not.
Would make sense for coming from Whitestone.
Right? Or is it part of a Monster Hunter toolkit?
Yeah. That's what I thought. Monster Hunter toolkit.
Yeah. No, I think it's a wooden stake in that, but yeah, it could just easily be an iron one that you drive through.
Yeah.
But yeah. Matt's depiction of the city was great.
Yes. Of the whole continent, that beginning.
Yeah, and now normally we don't like to bring in outside media sources and whatnot. But the History of Exandria video that they released and what we were seeing in Exandria Unlimited, that theme continues in Campaign 3.
Yeah.
With yet another Ganassi.
Yep.
So I think the later campaign is going to be plainer.
Okay.
I'm back on. There's something going on with the Divine Gate. And the Betrayer God's trying to tear it down. And I think that's what Keyleth is trying to prevent.
Yeah.
And why she has sent Orym here, because this ally of hers has gone missing. And I have a feeling they're from Pyra. And it might be a barbarian druid.
Yeah.
Multi-class. With the name like the Anger.
Yeah.
A Storm Herald. Desert druid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or, well, we're going to these in order, so let's...
Well, yeah. So yeah, I think we're on the same page. But I think possibly going back to what I said about manipulation, you know, hey, I'm like you. I had the sorceress origin, and the people I love tried to kill me. We got to go so these people don't try to kill you. We got to learn about this.
Oh, okay, I can see that.
I don't know if that's entirely true as into how they became travel buddies, or if that was used to reinforce that we're traveling. Like, they may have gone and she'd be like, you know, it's lucky you got out of there. What happened to me is...
Yeah.
And kind of solidify that bond. We have to trust each other.
Or she was in a coffin. If we're going damp here, she was in a coffin, and she used her aberrant mind ability to listen to everybody around her and heard that somebody was in there and got her out.
Yeah. That could be too. We know they're not from the same town.
Right.
Because Laudna was already traveling when she met.
Imogen, I think, is from Marquette.
No. They're both from Tal'Dorei.
Did she say that?
Yeah. They came.
I couldn't remember.
When they were all sitting together, they had said, oh, we're from far away, we're from Tal'Dorei. And that's when Marisha said she was from Whitestone, specifically. I was wondering if Laura's dipping back into the Byroden waters. Because that's very much the accent that came out in EXU when they visited Byroden.
Yeah, but did she watch it? I mean, Sam's the only one brave enough to raise his hand when Matt says,
Right.
for those who haven't seen EXU.
Yeah, and that was more of a joke than anything.
Yeah, because that's the joke with Sam. He never watches anything they put out.
Right. Unless he's in it.
Yes.
If he's in it, he'll watch it.
Yeah, the next thing we have, the next two that we meet are Ashton and Fresh Cut Grass. In the Lost Boy set.
Yeah.
I was going to add a modifier to that.
The Fosse Hollow is what it's called, but yeah.
Rose, on the edge of Molly without the ability to kill himself. It certainly is in Talison's vein of picking up on the outcasts.
Yeah.
The people that live on the fringe.
And I love that you said they were in a Lost Boys set because he totally reminded me of Rufio.
Yeah.
There was so much Rufio vibes in that introduction.
Yeah, if Rufio was a full-grown adult.
If Rufio was a D&D character.
Yeah. Totally, yeah. Especially when they get into his battle gear.
Yeah.
The black leather with the... Yeah. His injuries are going to be connected to his barbarian path.
Mm-hmm. Which we will most likely see in the Tal'Dorei Reborn. I think we see 2 new subclasses in this campaign from that.
Yeah, and so watching the episode, when he did his gravity thing,
yeah,
I was like, oh, Matt did,
the Dunamanic Barbarian is what I thought.
Yeah. And
according to Crit Roll Stats, it's called the Path of Fundamental Chaos is his subclass.
Yeah.
And the ability is Gravity Burst, which they mentioned in the show.
Yeah. And this gets back again to the notion that the planes and the Divine Gate are going to be important in this campaign.
Yep.
Because Molly being a blood hunter was sort of central to the conflict in campaign 2.
Yeah.
Like Molly's origin was central. And I think Matt has probably done that again.
Okay.
Where Talison's origin is central to the conflict. Maybe that's a point of comfort because Matt knows that Talison can handle that kind of heavy lift.
Yeah.
At the table, lore-wise. And because he and Matt have played so much and talked so much about different things that, that Talison can deliver those kinds of exposition dumps.
Yeah.
And when he does, he almost never double checks with Matt. He delivers.
Yeah.
And
very, very rarely does Matt need to correct him.
Yeah.
Makes me wonder how much of the hand, bouncing ideas off a wall was Taliesin in the creation of Exandria.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. And I think Matt had that conspiring with Taliesin, and also decided to conspire with Travis to bring Bertram in, to kill him off, to bring in his
Customer B.
Yeah. His real character.
Because someone has to end up playing two characters in this campaign. Liam and Sam have done theirs. Or not Liam, Taliesin and Sam have done their turn.
Yeah. I mean, you lose that. I was going to say, you could sort of argue that Sam did it again in Campaign 2 with Veth and not, but it's a very weak argument.
Yeah.
Some interesting character design choices with the molten glass.
Yes.
Being
very
the skull cap.
Kintsugi, I think is how it's pronounced. The broken pottery with the gold slag in the shoulder.
Yes.
I was like, oh my god.
Which they used to design the set in Loki.
Yeah.
He Who Remains, the Citadel at the end of time. Was that way.
Yep.
They used that as their inspiration for that too. And fresh cut grass. Sam getting the biggest laughs. 3 of them, I think he got. 4 of them. And like 2 of them just stopped everything at the table.
Yeah.
There's. Yeah. I think the name is just a troll to everyone who loved Henry Crabgrass.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. That's who fresh cut grass is. Yeah.
Do you think Dancer was a
tiefling? Artificer? Going to show up again?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because all the automatons, which, again, leaning on crit roll stats, because they tend to run things by critical roll and make sure they're right, lists his race as an Aoraton.
Yeah.
So.
Which is interesting because it brings up, was she alive back then? And like,
or did she reverse engineer an Aoraton and build her own?
That's the other.
Or is she like a creation bard and just lied her ass off about creating these Aoratons she found with their memories wiped? Renamed them and took them in.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah, it's possible.
Those are the 3 options in my mind.
And yeah, Rose, cleric and Aoraton, yeah.
Yes. And the cleric, this is the other homebrew domain.
It's peace domain.
Peace domain doesn't have sympathetic warding.
Pretty sure
has emboldening bond.
I think it's Sam Tasha's. Or was it Tasha's?
Yeah. Just the bottom of the stack.
I could have swore that it was peace domain. Magical bond. While bonded, creature can roll a d4, add the number roll to attack roll ability check. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Guaz was a peace domain. That's why I knew that wasn't part of the peace domain. Now, there was, I believe it was the love, because the peace domain started out as the love, then went to the unity, and then went to the peace domain and got changes.
Mm.
I believe the first version had a thing where it could take damage for something. So it could be a reworking of that UA.
Mm. Oh, yeah.
But I believe that it's going to be a new subclass. This and Taliesin subclass are two of the 4 brand new subclasses in the Tal'Dorei Reborn. We'll see in the Tal'Dorei Reborn.
Mm. And yeah, Rose, at first I thought Autonome as well.
Yeah.
And definitely Olaf vibes, yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking Rodney Copperbottom from Robots. Or Ben from Treasure Planet.
Yeah, Ben from Treasure Planet I also.
Just the always optimistic of Rodney Copperbottom, we can do this,
Yeah.
You guys got it.
Maybe it has something to do with the Soulbound.
Perhaps.
Because that's actually thinking about that. That's some interesting dialogue that he had.
Yeah.
Talking to them about how does he have a soul?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, that's you talk like you guys with souls. I don't know. I don't have one of those.
Which is an interesting question of can you be a cleric without a soul?
Well, especially considering he renamed Shield of Faith Shield of Help, I think he's more of a philosophical cleric that it talks about.
Yeah.
Than a deity-based cleric.
Mm.
Because he specifically says, I cast Shield of Faith, which I've renamed Shield of Help.
Yeah.
To take the faith aspect out of it.
Yeah.
And he wants to be Norm from Cheers. Maybe a regular bar, so when I come in, they're all going to cheer my name and be glad I'm here.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I love it. That makes Taliesin, I just drew a blank on his name, the mailman.
Yeah. I want to say Fred, but I know that's wrong.
No. Anyway.
Clive.
Yes. Cliff Clavin.
Yes. Anyway, I think I'm more impressed with Sam's preparation for this character than I have been with any other off the bat.
Okay.
Just because of those idiots. No. That actually kind of annoyed me. Just because it derailed an important interaction happening. And Taliesin even put a lampshade on that fact. It's like, well, if you're going to derail, that's a good way to do it, I guess.
Yeah.
But that just kind of annoyed me about that, which is why I took him out of the running for MVP.
Fair enough.
But he was in the running. But yeah, just that he took on this vocabulary.
Oh, yeah.
Impressed me.
Yeah.
And it's...
With the smiley day.
Yeah, it's... And I don't know if it's the influence of Liam, maybe? I don't know.
I don't know.
Because we've talked about how Liam tends to be the one who's most in character all the time at the table. And Sam seemed much more that this episode.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, the under the core. Let me say, what is it? What was it called? Starts with a J.
F.
F.
The Fosse Hollow.
Fosse Hollow.
Yeah, I love that terminology. This is where things go to be forgotten or are thrown to be forgotten.
Yeah. I don't know. I wouldn't classify it as his house. That's just his. I would classify it as his squat.
Yeah. Very much more.
And in some ways, like if I was to run a Shadowrun campaign and I wanted to set up a tenement in the Barrens or Puyallup that was very community oriented and very tight knit, those are the kind of people that I would put in that place.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, everything about that place I loved because it implied things about the infrastructure of the city that I think are going to become important.
Yeah.
Because I think I was right that we're going to have a political intrigue campaign.
Oh yeah.
And the return of EXU, of the three of them, down here on a mission for Keelet, makes that more and more likely for me.
Yep.
Because the voice of the Tempest doesn't send people out to go do things unless it's important.
Yeah. And the fact that you're on assignment from the Voice of the Tempest kind of makes you a political figure, envoy.
Yeah. Yeah, whether you want to acknowledge that or not. Yeah. So I have one joke proposition for Travis's next character, and one slightly more possible.
Okay.
The joke one, the first one, is the Pachyodon.
Yeah.
That she stole the earring from.
Okay. That would.
Because, like, looking back on it, the mannerisms of that Pachyodon were very much Travis going into Dashilla's lair.
Oh, yeah.
He's large, ticks a box for Travis, and he is frightened by something.
Yeah.
And those are two things that Travis has had in all of his characters. Because Grog was afraid of his uncle.
Yeah.
And afraid of losing Pike and everybody. And of course, Ford was afraid of everything to do with Uk'otoa. So I don't necessarily think that's the case, but if that ends up being it, I have to say it now. Just because, after the old man dies, they're commiserating, and in walks up the Pachyodon and looking suspiciously over at your table. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other one is whoever Orem and the others are looking for.
Okay. Ashad Burio.
Because that makes narrative sense to me. Because that would unite. Sort of Bertram Bell brings them all together, is the mentor figure, dies possibly saving them.
Yeah.
Or showing them what it means to answer the call of adventure. And then through his actions and through their working with this orc fellow, leads them to his other character, the anger.
Yeah.
That they're looking for.
The only argument I have against that is that wraps up that subplot fairly quickly.
Not really, because if that is who they're after, and it is Travis's new character after Belle dies, he now has two potential ways for them to uncover the planar influences in the government of this area. Like, it's no accident that they were fighting 20 years ago and then stopped. And this dude took over 20 years ago when all that fighting stopped.
Yeah.
And it's a little odd, and I personally don't buy into the whole Masked Lords thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the coterie seems to be very much the Masked Lords. Like, no one knows who they really are. They meet in secret and decide things. Like, the notion that governments exist by the consent of the governed, I think, is an important point about government. And how can you consent to being governed by people you don't know?
Yeah.
But it also sets up, like, Jaman Saord. It seems to, like, I buy into the idea that this is the in-world shell game of immortals continuing to rule as mortals over the populace.
Yeah.
I buy that that's how they do it. Particularly if there isn't any particular way that the coterie can abuse its power. And if it's set up to be outside of influence. We're anonymous, so no one can buy us off. And maybe that's how the populace buys into it.
Yeah.
Like I said, there are a lot of questions that need to be answered, but my buy-in is...
Well, if they just keep asking who's on it, then each time someone dies, right? Simple.
Yes.
I just solved campaign 3. But I will say that orc at the end there gave some serious vampire vibes.
I didn't get that.
You didn't get that?
No.
I was totally envisioning.
I mean, on the rewatch, I could see how you could read into it. But orcs have dark vision. They don't need light.
Yeah.
So it can be very dark in there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all true. But combined with he was the servant of so-and-so, and then when they died, he took over. And the shadow game of the immortals posing as mortals to rule the city, like, so many dominoes, and you got to call it a train, buddy.
Yeah, I mean,
at a certain point, like, just the one scene with the orc, no, that doesn't scream vampire, per se. But when you connect it to the origin story that their landlord gave them and the shell game that the school gave them, I'm like, all right, this is a vampire.
Yeah. The notion of erudite orcs is an interesting take that
I
is
love it.
contrary to most world building.
Yep.
And I'm interested to see how that plays out. Yeah, I don't know. So yeah, I mean, so the new guy that they're after could be someone from Pyra, and or it could be Travis's next character, or it's possible
Okay.
Bertram Bell dies. Travis puts away the character sheet, pulls out another character sheet. I am Eric Bell, son of Bertram
You
Bell.
killed my father. See, yeah. And the fifth level thing threw me off because at first I was like, oh, is this going to be like a changeling impersonating Bell? That's why he's a lower level in different stats. And then he was like, and I get to attack twice, right? Yeah, your level, you have extra attack. I'm like, oh shit, he's fifth level.
Yeah.
And I think it was right after that is when they showed the character card and confirmed he was fifth level. And I'm like, because at first I was like, okay, his new character is actually a changeling. Then I was like, nope.
So currently the big question is class-wise, character build-wise, Marisha, because she's the only one that's got multi-class right now. And you say you think she started Sorcerer.
I think she started Sorcerer, and I want to say she's got 2 levels in Sorcerer.
And 1 in Warlock.
Because she didn't seem to have any invocations that I could pick up on.
And see, I was thinking she was 2 levels of Warlock, 1 of Sorcerer.
And she could be, and just not have used them.
Yeah.
Or I didn't notice.
No, I don't think she definitely didn't use any invocations.
Yeah. The only one I could think of, and I didn't go back and do the math on but I know she got 10 or less on all the damage for the Eldritch Blast. But I don't know if she ever mentioned, oh, I rolled this, so it's this. And has Agonizing Blast.
No.
That was the only thing I could think that I missed. But invocations are kind of a big deal for Warlocks.
Yeah, they are. But I don't think it's... So she could have picked one that's neither here nor there that she plans to get rid of when she takes her pact.
Right, so what's the other one?
I don't know.
And I would like to say earlier I mentioned that some people have magic items and stuff. I think that both she and Laura have something akin to a Cloak of Protection. Strictly because their ACs are 13, they're not wearing armor, and they have a +2 dex modifier.
What's their AC again?
13. I mean, Ladna could theoretically be wearing, like, leather armor. 11 plus dex. That would give her the 13. So she may not have it. But Imogen most likely has it. Because she's got a 13 with a 14 dex. So it's not mage armor.
Yeah.
because that would put her at 15. So I think at least Laura has a Cloak of Protection, or something that grants +1 AC at least.
Yeah, Ring of Protection, Cloak of Protection.
Yeah.
Yeah, because sorcerers don't get the...
Yeah. The Warlock you can explain away because they get light armor. Okay, great. She's got leather armor. It's just designed to look like her hag outfit.
Yeah. Rose was asked about MVP.
Oh, that was a hard one for me. I mean, arguably it has to be Travis because one of our main requirements is moving the story forward.
Yeah.
I mean, arguably he has to be there for that, because that's our heaviest weighted criteria.
Yeah.
Part of me wants to vote Marisha just because Laudna is so much fun. I love Laudna.
It's fair.
But I think all in all, I got to give it to Taliesin.
Interesting.
And because he was the one
who had purpose,
who pushed the group together. You could argue Bertrand did in offering him the job, but he's the one that started interacting with all the factions first.
Yes.
And most in depth.
Yes.
Which is a big part of that unifying
and pushed everyone to introduce themselves.
Yeah.
He asked, "What's your name?" First.
Yeah. Oh, maybe we should just go around, you know. Yeah. And so because of that, I'm giving it to him.
Yeah. I think that's accurate. And Rose agrees that Fern is great. And
absolutely.
I think it's going to be interesting to watch her bounce off of everybody else. And again, I elated that she gets to continue with Fern.
Yes.
And Liam gets to continue with Orem.
Yes. And I'm elated that Robbie's there. I know that my overall pick was that there wasn't going to be an additional person. I did say that if they did bring in someone, it was 80% going to be Robbie.
Yes.
And I'm glad he's there, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Even though I was like, no, they're not going to do it. I'm glad he's there. He's great. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad that they're continuing those characters because, while EXU was good, it didn't give me enough of the characters for my taste, you know. Mm. There was no, other than Opal, who was central to the story.
Yeah.
It didn't really go into a lot on the characters. And I love William's description of Orm's fighting style.
Yeah.
And
well, I mean, if you're going to play a fighter, that's like Sokka's master.
Mm-hmm.
It's how you stamp your identity on the battlefield.
Yeah.
You cannot take back a stroke of the pen or the brush or of the sword. Like, that's how you put your identity out there. So that's, big part of being a fighter, I think, is thinking about how
do they fight? How do they move? Yeah. What is it like?
I don't think we will see Opal. Unless they go to Tal'Dorei. But I don't think that's going to happen.
Even if they go to the Tal'Dorei, I don't think they see Opal. I don't think they see Opal unless Imogen is also from Byrodin, and they have to go there.
Yeah. But we'll have to wait until next week, next Thursday, or this Thursday.
Yes.
I spend too much time jumping through time in my job that. Anyway, yes, this Thursday, episode 2, where we will have a definite answer as to whether or not this orc is a vampire or not.
Yes.
But yeah. Thanks for hanging out, and we will see you guys next Tuesday.